I am so pleased to welcome to the show Linda Dezenski. She has written a book that I think is necessary for so many people, even people that don't have disabilities, to know what it's like and to know that, hey, all of us eventually are going to get something. I mean, let's face that. And I've seen that happen to people where they're completely healthy and then some accident or just older age happens, right? So her book is called Persistence: Living with an Authentic Life with a Disability. Again, living an authentic life with a disability. Her story blew me away when we talked off air. So Linda, thanks so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
Let's talk about, first of all, your road. Tell us about your disability, if you will, and what you've done in your life.
Well, I was born with spastic cerebral palsy, which is a brain injury. They don't know what caused it. So I was born and I have mobility issues. I have balance issues. It affects your balance and your coordination. So when I finally learned to walk, which was not until I was 8, I learned to walk with crutches. And then I had some surgeries in my teens and I had to learn to walk again. And I walked with a walker and then I was back to the crutches. Now I'm older, so lately I did have a fall a few weeks ago, which caused some pain in my knee. So I'm using a wheelchair when I go out because it's just safer.
Yeah, of course. So let's go back to your childhood. What was it like having the things that were dealt to you, like you talked about cerebral palsy, and dealing with other kids in school and what they knew or didn't know? What was that like for you?
Well, in the 60s when I was growing up, it was not uncommon for kids with disabilities to go to segregated school, which was a school that was affiliated to United Cerebral Palsy. And I went there from the age of 1.5 until I was about 13. And the neurologist that recommended the program to my mom was famous for treating people with brain injuries, and they had a very rigorous physical therapy. Some people needed speech therapy. We had occupational therapy if we needed it, and an audiologist that would come in and test our hearing and stuff like that. But essentially, most of my early program was probably 50% physical therapy and not a lot of academics. And eventually got to the point where I was walking and they decided that there wasn't really anything more they could do for me. And luckily during that time, they were doing something called mainstreaming children with disabilities into public schools. So I went to a public high school in my neighborhood when I was about 14, which was the first time I had not been in a school with people with disabilities. So it was a challenge because I didn't have a lot of academics that any regular school program would have afforded me. I didn't have math and science and a lot of things like geography, extra subjects that I would have had if I was in public school. So it was an uphill climb because after being with people with disabilities and then going into a regular school where there were only 1 or 2 other people with disabilities, I had to make the adjustment of kind of being like a space alien coming into a new environment. And the kids didn't know what to do with me, and I didn't really have a lot in common with them either. The common ordinary things, like I didn't even know how to open up a locker. I had never had lunch in a cafeteria, so it kind of made me a social misfit probably for the first 2 or 3 years. But I was loving it because I was finally getting algebra and zoology and topics that I'd never had before. And to be honest with you, I refer to special ed math as the gift that keeps on giving, because even today my math skills are not that great. But when I had algebra, that prepared me to take the college entrance exams, which I did with everybody else. And I did get into college, and then I went to graduate school, and then, I got a job, and it was a full-time job, and, I was able to be a regular citizen and pay taxes and all that, which was great. I loved it because that was exactly what I wanted. I always wanted people to understand that I was just like them. I had the same hopes and dreams, but my body was different than I wanted it to be. So when I started working, it was a lot easier because I felt like I was more, it was more normal for me. But a few things I'd like to say about it is that, when you're a little kid and you have a disability and your parents are, normal, bless them, salt of the earth people like my parents were, they were sad because they weren't expecting a baby with a disability, and nobody knew what to expect from me. So all of my milestones of even graduating from high school and going on to college, that was the epitome of success. And, my view of my life was I was going to keep biting at the apple until I got everything I wanted, which was eventually, I owned a home, and, I've been doing a lot of things that normal, quote unquote, people do.
What would you say to people, because persistence, living an authentic life with a disability, and you just described that how exciting it was. You could be at the cafeteria, it didn't matter if you were a little bit of a misfit for a couple of years, then wow, you went to college and then graduate school and got a job and had a house, and you wanted to pay taxes, you did what was, quotes, as you said, normal. What would you tell people, and you talk about it in your book, that people don't understand about disabilities, but people with disabilities?
Yeah, the thing is that everybody has something about themselves that they don't like. I don't care what it could be. It could be your hairline, it could be your weight, it could be, your background. Maybe you're ethnically different, or you have a different sexual orientation. Whatever thing you have that you feel is your liability, your flaw, you have choices. You can either fix it, you can, live with it, but, you really can't make it go away. In my case, definitely not. I mean, the strive to be normal was get these surgeries and you'll walk more normal. Okay, and I did. But the fact is that in this culture we have, we want to minimize every flaw. And sometimes we hide things. We hide, characteristics about our life that we feel are, going to be possible liabilities to our social life. The thing that always makes me kind of laugh about it is that when we're talking to people, they're generally so focused on the next thing they're going to say in a conversation that they don't always pay attention to you and what you're saying and what you look like and whatnot. But when I'm on the street, because I obviously look so different, people take it upon themselves sometimes to unload their attitudes on me, which aren't always positive. Yes, there are people who scream out the window, "Oh, you inspire me." Or there are people who say, get out of the street, you freak. Like I shouldn't be there. But, I'm walking along like everybody else trying to get to and from work. Maybe I just got off the bus and, I'm thinking about what am I going to have for dinner when I get home tonight? And all the normal things that people think about. I'm not thinking about how I look. My disability is in my rear view. I deal with it every day, so it's my normal. It's my way of living. So to me, it's not remarkable. And I so don't care what I look like to other people. I just want to get where I'm going and do what's on my to-do list that day.
And that's really something that a lot of people can hear instead of focusing on whatever, as you said, the flaw is, whatever it is. And it could, somebody could be gorgeous. It could be something in their background, something they don't want people to know that really is maybe no one's business anyway. And like you said, you're going about your life. So you also have given back so much to the community. Tell everyone about your career. I think it's cool what you've done.
Well, I pretty much always I worked in home care first, and then I went to a Center for Independent Living, which is a peer-centered nonprofit organization that provides a menu of services to people with disabilities so they can increase their independent living skills. We actually work with a lot of people in nursing homes. There are a lot of younger people that have strokes and things that end up in nursing homes. And as a community, and I'm talking about the civil rights community for people with disabilities, we've always wanted to bring people out. We want people to be integrated. We want people to have the joy of having as much freedom of being in the community as possible. So we do nursing home transition, we would do peer support, we would do cooking classes, money management classes, anything that would enable a person how to supervise your attendant. A lot of people with physical disabilities who use wheelchairs have someone come in the morning and the evening to help them through their daily routine. So we would teach them how to hire and fire and supervise their home care worker. So when I was doing that, we also focused on a political agenda, which at that time was the passage of the ADA, and working on local to Philadelphia, because that's where I'm from. We would do a lot of accessibility issues in the community. We worked on making transportation more accessible, and so forth. So when you work for a Center for Independent Living, that's like working in the politics of disability rights. But then I went from there to a job where I'm now working in home and community-based waiver services for people with intellectual disabilities and autism. So I pretty much always worked with people with disabilities in one form or fashion. And my advocacy comes from the point of view of standing up for a person to be in the least restrictive setting and have the most informed rights and freedoms that they can to live successfully.
When people read your book, which you can get on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, again, Persistence, Living an Authentic Life with a Disability, what do you hope, Linda, that they take away? What will they learn?
Hopefully more patience and compassion with themselves and with people around them who may be different. And then also to understand that life is complicated, and it is more complicated when you have a disability. So the idea that, we're a burden to society somehow, or we cost more money. No, we don't. Any money that we have, we're spending in the community as long as we're free in the community. We're giving people jobs, our caregivers who take care of us, so it's not like it's always that we take and don't give back. The other thing that I strive for with everyone I've ever worked for is to find your sense of purpose, find your way of contributing to the community. And make sure that you're living a happy life. I don't care what you think you can't do. Focus on what you can do. Focus on surrounding yourself with people who can help you with the things that you can't do. So you can devote your time to the things that make you happy and make you feel like you're doing something purposeful. That's the way to live a happy life, an authentic life.
Wow, that is powerful, and that's a perfect place to end this. Linda Dezenski, thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed our conversation.